You're like the angry Australian version of Bob Ross. Alright, bet. Hello, I'm not Bob Ross, and I'd like to welcome you to The Joy of Poor Financial Decisions. This is going to be a multi-minute video designed to take you step by step through a very average painting project. And in this state, we're going to make a Gundam Aerial shadow box diorama that has never been seen before on Heresy for Heretics. I want you to think of this video as a private lesson in my studio. Before we start, I suggest that you grab a warm glass of Shut the Hell Up and view this video in its entirety. If you're really doing this the entire time, I'm doing the voiceover. Okay, friend. I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't get better. I think I've told the story 100 different times now that last time that we moved studios, I had a bunch of models break. And this HG Aerial was definitely one of them. The hand, the foot, no idea where they went. So it really just became something that I tried different things out on, and that's why it's multiple colors. It's also how it ended up in this video because I didn't know if this was going to work out or not. But as it turns out, losing the right hand and the left foot was actually kind of perfect for this pose. Which is actually not even an original pose because it's based off of Bandai artwork. And also, yes, this frame is plastic, which actually helped out a lot because it meant the internals were all hollow. Which actually really helped out because it gives us a little bit of extra space to play with. With Aerial mounted giggity, I did a really quick off-camera cutout to serve as the back of the frame and give us a little bit more depth. And yes, I absolutely do need a better hot glue gun. This is somewhere between the inside of the sock next to the bed and devil spaghetti. And trust me, with the next step, the euphemisms don't get any better. To fill up the gaps and give the back a little bit of texture, this is just your regular old house spackle. And I am going to leave a lot of texture in this because I've got an effect in mind for the back when we're done. And if you've been to this channel before, you know how hard I am trying to hold a mum joke in. And now that we have completed the basic construction of the frame model and its backing, we can move on to furthering the idea of depth and perception. God, that wig is terrible. The art that inspired this diorama has Aerial flying through space with a Gundam bit system basically just floating all around her. Which works really well with the shadow box idea because we can add these parts in different levels and layers to really start pushing the idea of depth. And to make it feel like they've got this free floating form, we're actually going to start gluing bits through the frame itself and Aerial. Which I'm a huge fan of because stands and supporting structures that aren't actually part of the art piece kind of ruin the illusion a little bit for me. And we get to do something cool similar to breaking the fourth wall by actually making it look like she's coming out of the piece. Now that we've started priming, this is where the division of hobby ecosystems come in. If you come more from the Gundam side of the hobby, you probably would have painted this before you glued it all in. Which is fine and honestly probably would have made this a lot quicker of a project. But as a miniature painter, this is where things start to come back to home turf. When everything's assembled like this and we give a primer black and a zenithal of white, we get to control the perception of light source. And in a piece like this, we now get to combine physical dimension and depth with painted dimension and depth. Controlling the shadows and volumes is just what gives it that extra dimension. And if you do come from painting gunpla, honestly, just give it a shot, try it out, it's something you might like it. For the back, I'm just going to add in a few environmental atmosphere effects. Even though very little of this is going to be seen, I still want the idea to kind of creep around a little bit. Again, we're pushing perception. Step 1 of this effect is basically just spraying down the entire back and a little bit around the sides with Diabolic Plum. It's going to give us some nice, colourful and interesting shadows, and that is the big part, you still want interesting. And that's why I'm still going to wrap around the idea up until the front just a little bit. This isn't the predominant focus, but a main character is nothing without the supporting cast. Even in Castaway, where it was just Tom Hanks sitting on a beach for 2 hours, everybody cared more about Wilson. Step 2 into tricking people into thinking we know what we're doing. We're going to bust out the crystal blue to give us a simple OSL effect. Again, we're really not going to see much of this, there's just if you're standing on one particular angle that you catch a little bit of it. But we're going to continue it on the front because we still want that atmospheric feeling. And it's just a really simple way of adding a little bit of glow from the thrusters. Which is actually adding another idea to the piece, and that's momentum. Alright, block your ears, the stupid Bob Ross bit's back again. And now we can move on to the painting part of this demonstration. And here's where I'd like to say thank you to our friend Xenophor Highlighting for taking care of the white portion of this project. You really helped us out there, champ.
There was supposed to be a thumbs up and a wink after that bit, but there is only so much cringe that even I can put up with. And yes, it's even starting to piss me off a little bit. But at least now we're into some brushwork, and for this we need 3 shades of blue. Aerial's blue parts are fairly light and a little bit closer to more of a pastel kind of feel. But because we want to keep painting with the idea of depth and dimension, we need to start darker. So for all the base coating of blue, we're going to start off with Imperial Navy. And because all the white was airbrushed, we do kind of want to be as neat as possible, because any corrections from here is actually fairly difficult. And this is actually one of the reasons where airbrush makes you a little bit better of a hand painter. To do this, I generally start out a little wide from where I want to paint it and then slowly paint in. If you're a house painter, this is called cutting in. Unless I'm wrong, and then it's not. The next step up into our midtones is royal blue. Even though our subject is pointing in a different direction, our light placement is still going to be mainly pointed towards us. So instead of a topographical map where you generally build from low to high, we're actually moving from back to front, getting lighter as it grows physically closer to us. The other thing that we have to start to think of as well is all these separate plates that are the same color in the same spot. While we're adding in our midtone, we're going to treat them as separate plates because that's what they are. But when it comes to highlighting, we're going to actually treat them as all the one piece. This is going to help to give us a mix between detail separation and uniformity. We want the detail separation so we can see each piece clearly and it makes sense, it's readable, but uniforming all the highlights together is going to make it feel like it's cohesive. This is somewhat of a non-metallic metal adjacent idea to light placement. There's a lot of big words and big ideas in this, but in reality it is still some very simple ideas. And now we're into the highlights. And Arctic Gem is actually going to be our highest highlight. And the placement of this actually gets a lot more simple, because this is only going on the sharpest edges that are pointing towards us. But because it is such a big contrast jump between Royal Blue and Arctic Gem, I do come back with a little bit of a glaze just to blend it back. And honestly, sometimes the Arctic Gem is just feathered out. For the few yellow details, we're going to start off with Sunburned Ochre. To start off with, we really just want to lay down a base coat of this. And because we're going to be moving into a yellow, which it can be a difficult color to work with, we've got a few different blending ideas. Just like with the blue, we're going to be using a little bit of glazing, a little bit of feathering, but we're also going to be talking in half steps. This means creating a color that is halfway between the Sunburst Ochre and Demonic Yellow. It is still quite a big contrast jump, but that's where the feathering and the slight glazing comes back in. In a basic breakdown, all we're doing is slightly stepping up in color and then dragging it back into the darker tone. In its most basic form, all blending is blurring out transitions. After we get this middle step in, because yellow is again pretty difficult to work with at times, we're going to take it slow. Instead of trying to force opacity with thicker paint, keep an eye on your texture, it'll take a couple of layers, just be patient. Before this next Bob Ross section, let's just take a deep breath.
Before we move on to how we approach the red details, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our friends at the Army Painter for all of their support. And if you would like to support the supporters who support us by supporting them, they have supported me to help them support you, support them with the code Heresy5. And if you're in Australia, that same code Heresy5 can be used at in-games. Support. Judging on the accent alone, it seems like Bob Ross has become an English theatre major. Hi, I'm Bob Ross.
I hate this and I hate me for doing this. On to the red. We're going to use the exact same idea that we did with the yellow, except it's red now. For that base coat, we're going to start off with Blanched Berry. Again, just like the yellow, we're going to use 2 paints to move our gradient forward. When it comes to highlighting red, there's generally only 2 ways people think about it. You can either add yellow and move into an orange, or you add white and you move towards pink. And to be completely honest, I hate both of these ideas. because changing those highlight tones really does kind of feel like you're pulling it away from feeling like it's red. So alternatively, I like to start with dark, deep, desaturated reds. In this case, it's Blanche Berry. After that, I make a half tone between a true red and that desaturated, again, in this case, flag red. While it's still building up in brightness, it's also building up in contrast of saturation. This way, instead of finishing up on your mum, we're finishing with a true red. And the end result actually gives us something that feels like red because it is, but also has depth. For all the parts that are supposed to be darker, I'm going to flop out Turnbull Turquoise. And I use this color a lot for parts like this. It's deep, it's dark, but it's not a true neutral black. It's nowhere near. In contrast, we still get a black feel, but we get to keep it interesting. And because it's speed paint, we actually get to pull out a different technique. For the parts that are supposed to be clear to represent the permit score, I'm actually going to use the patchiness. The variation in coverage actually implies that there is something underneath. And being patchy on purpose isn't typically something we get to do in miniature painting. While the Turnbull Turquoise is still out, I'm going to bust out the airbrush one more time. And this is going to take care of all of that overspray from the Zenithal. But again, because this is Turnbull Turquoise and not a flat black, we're going to add a little bit of extra interest here. And it's actually going to make our OSL feel a little bit like it's affecting its surroundings. It's always the little extra details that make everything come together. Alright, let's throw this backboard together so we can be done with it. I started off with Broadsword Silver speed paint, and honestly through the airbrush it was just taking too damn long, because I want a fairly heavy coverage of this, because we've got an idea. And even though I get paints for free, I'm not going to waste it. But that's where the second dickhead move came in, because I picked up a brush that was too damn small. But because I did end up picking a brush, I ended up going to Mithril from the Fanatic range. I also swapped to a dry brush so that we could just be done with this. I also actually got to do something I've never done before, and that's wet blend metallics. Now we can finally go through what the idea for this back panel is. All the texture, all the metallics, everything that we wanted in here is all going towards one single idea. I wanted to make this feel like it was a holographic shiny card. I have tried a similar idea in the past with speed paint, but speed paint still comes out with a little too heavy of a coverage for this. Which is why I jumped over to the Army Painter Air range and busted out all of their fluorescence. They give us a nice hit of vibrant color while still keeping the transparency so we get that shiny effect. And then again, because we want to draw focus towards the middle, I went back in with Turnbull Turquoise and made a vignette. That's just a fancy word for painting it dark around the outside. As always, a massive thank you to InGames, The Army Painter, and the best Patreon members in the world. All the links are in the description, and I'm sorry about the Bob Ross thing, truly.
What is his accent? It sounds nothing like Bob Ross.
Big love, you filthy heretics.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.